And now the Flash premieres, and so our fates have reached a flash.
Hey everybody, this is TJR. If this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. If not, welcome back. Taking a little break from talking about music here so I can discuss some of my other interests, which includes film, also comics, and of course that means comic book superhero movies. So if you're one of those who only wants to hear me talk about music, I'm going to leave you some links for some of my music related videos that I don't think got enough love. I'd appreciate it if you just go watch those instead. So last week, I watched the Flash motion picture. And this film has been getting just a tremendous bashing on the internet. A lot of this has to do with some bad CGI effects, which is true. It does have some very subpar CGI effects in it. But I will also add that this film is really, well, how do I put it delicately? It's a cluster. But then again, the entire DC EU series of music has been, for the most part, just one big, long 10-year cluster.
Our vibe the last 10 years looked either bleak or high on bad joints.
So I feel that for this reason, this movie, The Flash, is an appropriate way to end the series. The big difference being that The Flash is a cluster of film that is having a good time with itself, which I can't say about a lot of the previous DC Extended Universe movies that were released prior. Yes, there is some really bad CGI in this film. And yes, this is the kind of film that if you think too hard about it, you will find yourself going, hey, wait a minute. And a good example is like, for instance, the scene where our heroes find Kara, aka Supergirl, imprisoned by the Russians. She has been kept weak and gaunt underneath some man-made, red sun rays, which of course rob her of her powers and weaken her. She's dressed in this small white prison hospital gown, and yet sitting right next to her is her Kryptonian costume, made of indestructible fabric, which of course the Russians just leave there with her. So our heroes, scoop that up while they're scooping her up. And, this all makes perfect sense for her captors to do this, because the Russians are probably thinking, why should we study this? After all, she might get tired of wearing that very luxurious hospital gown we gave her, and she might want to wear something different. Now, personally, I choose not to let moments like this ruin the film for me, because there was, in spite of all this, there was just a lot of really fun stuff in this movie. And I think the fun stuff, the good stuff, really outweighed the bad. So instead of concentrating on the bad, I think I will concentrate on the good. Now, real quick, let's just address the bad CGI. Yes, it's there. Yes, it needed more work. Yes, a film with this big a budget shouldn't have effects like that. But there were some parts in the film where the bad CGI really worked in its favor. I'm going to bring up the scene at the very beginning where Barry Allen has to save all the falling babies. Yes, the babies all looked like they were already dead, but that only added to just how completely bat bizarro the whole scene is to begin with. I spent the entirety of that scene basically alternating from two reactions. One was like going like this, and the other was just going like this. It didn't feel like I was watching a superhero film. It felt like I was watching some upstart indie rebel filmmaker's version of what a superhero film should look like. I mean, that scene was just too absurd, and I loved it for that reason. I mean, the whole baby in the microwave thing, it was just crazy. I just could not stop laughing. The next really good thing about the film is its opening 20 to 30 minutes. And to explain, let me give you a little bit of background. When Marvel Comics started, or I should say when Marvel Studios started the MCU with Iron Man, they had to start with a character that most of the general public outside of comic book fans really didn't know anything about. Now, when DC, aka Warner Brothers, decided that they wanted in on some of that Marvel money and thus decided to start their own cinematic universe, they started in a place of greater strength because they had characters like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, whom most of the general public know about. Furthermore, at this point now, the Avengers had already come out. DC, Warner Brothers already now had the blueprint on how to make one of these superhero franchises work. It was already available because Marvel had already shown this is how you do it. All they had to do was follow the formula that Marvel used between 2008's Iron Man and 2014's Avengers. Marvel had written the playbook already. DC just had to follow it. And yet, even with these characters that were, known throughout the world, they still managed to really fumble the ball on the whole thing. Now, this brings me back to the opening 30 minutes of The Flash featuring the Justice League. As I watched this opening set piece, I couldn't help but think, what if, no pun intended, the first DCEU movie had opened with this exact same scene? I can't help but think how much better things might have been, because this short little, scene here at the beginning was so economically well written that I really do believe that if I were to show this scene to someone who had never seen any of the previous DC films and was not a comics fan, I think that they would have had no trouble being able to process what each character was about. That's how well I think this opening scene in The Flash was written and directed. In many respects, DC Warner Brothers was kind of like Daffy Duck in that one Bugs Bunny cartoon. I think it was called Alibaba Bunny, where Daffy's constantly saying, "It's mine, it's mine, it's mine, it's all mine." DC Warner's was impatient to get to the Avengers money. They didn't want to take the time to build the franchise properly the way they should have. And they were like Daffy Duck, basically saying, we want it now. We want it all now. We want that money now. They were very concerned that the whole superhero genre was just a quick fad, and that by the time they got to that, it would have faded out, and everybody would be suffering from superhero fatigue. Of course, every 3 to 5 years, we've got YouTube vloggers saying that superhero movies are over. Everybody's tired of them. Superhero fatigue. They say it every 3 to 5 years. They're saying it right now, as a matter of fact. I don't see any real indications that this genre is going away anytime soon, or that it won't stop being a dominant genre, but we'll see what happens. But, they say this every couple of years, and then they just keep, and they're right until they're proven wrong. And what happens is a couple of films come out that basically trump all that, and that's it. It's back in business again. So anyhow, though, but that's, again, the internet. We have to have something negative to talk about. Otherwise, people won't tune in. How in the world have I been able to do this all these years? Anyways, though, in spite of some bad CGI and a lot of those wait a minute moments, I really do feel that The Flash overall worked really well with its comedy, which always landed. More surprising, in fact, is that in spite of its comedy, it also lands on its more emotional beats involving Barry Allen and his parents, too. Not to mention the scenes of adult Barry with immature young Barry. These scenes were great. Both the physical and verbal comedy interplay between young and old Barry Allen are fun to watch, and they work 100% in my opinion. Also, getting back to the bad CGI, I honestly thought that the CGI used in the whole, I think they called it the Chrono Bowl sequence, I thought all of that was wonderfully surreal and brain melting. And if this is bad CGI, then I think it helped. The CGI creation for these scenes had this very uneasy, nightmarish, dreamlike feel to them, and I loved every second of them. Also, while I'm discussing that scene, I really enjoyed the moments that paid homage to previous DC or iterations of DC characters in film and in TV. I especially loved the very brief black and white homage to George Reeves's Superman, the TV series from the 1950s. Of course, the homage to Christopher Reeve and Helen Slater, seeing them together as Superman and Supergirl, something we never saw in those films. With all that said, I have to say that I was disappointed not to see Grant Gustin as TV's Flash. I feel that was a real misstep. I don't know how they could have missed that. At the end of the day, The Flash was not the greatest superhero film that I had ever seen, but I would definitely consider rewatching it a whole lot sooner than I would ever consider rewatching, I would say, the majority of the DCEU series of films. Anyways, everybody, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Please leave a comment. As always, if you like these videos, be sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon so you never miss a video. I want to give a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. Patreon supporters do receive exclusive weekly videos not available on this channel. And if you can't be a Patreon supporter, that's okay. I understand. You can show your support by just clicking like and sharing these videos with anyone you think might be interested. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Hope you all stay safe and healthy. Take care. Bye-bye.
We had a